You're tuned in to Shake, Rattle, and Goal, the official podcast of your Springfield Thunderbirds.
Osmanski, a one-timer deflected side of the goal. Alexandrov scores! Hosted
by Matt Baker and Steve Forney. A show that's everything Springfield hockey, with interviews including players, coaches, and staff.
The Springfield Indians repeat as the Calder Cup champions.
Listen to this podcast on all major streaming platforms and wherever you download podcasts.
In his first year at the helm, Kevin McDonald and Drew Bannister have the Teamers in the Calder Cup Finals.
Watch the podcast on the official Shake, Rattle, and Goal YouTube page at SRG Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Matt Baker and Steve Forney. And this episode number 14 of the Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast is proudly brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing in Tower Square in downtown Springfield and their new location in Amherst. It is your go-to pre-game spot for Springfield Thunderbirds games. Alongside Matt Baker, I am Steve Forney, and right off the top of the show here, it is our pleasure to bring in AHL official, something we've never done before. But something that I find fascinating. I can't wait for this. Casey Terreri. Casey, thanks so much for taking the time joining the show today. This is going to be a good time, I think.
Yeah, thanks for being there, guys. Glad to be here.
Matt, why don't you lead us off? What do you got for the official today?
Oh, what do I have? Casey, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's talk a little bit about you first before we get into the ins and outs of officiating in the AHL. You're from Rhode Island. You played a little hockey at Salem State. At what point in your career, in your life, were you hanging up the stick and putting on the black and white? Like, was there a moment where you were like, I want to be a ref?
So a little bit, yeah. I would say, to answer your question directly, it was kind of right when I was done playing. Kind of just needed something to do, make a little money while I was still in school. But I'd started reffing a little bit before, like in high school. And that's kind of how I got my start, got my feet wet a little bit. Didn't play during college. And then once I was done playing in college is when I kind of really started to take it serious and kind of go full throttle at it.
It's interesting. I feel like the other game, maybe it was a couple of weeks ago, there was a linesman who was like 20. And
you know what?
I was surprised by that.
It's even like how the AHL is now player-wise, where it's a younger league than it was 10 years ago, kind of the same thing, where there's guys who really take a liking to it and are really good at it, and they're kind of just trying to push in guys that they think that can do the job well as young as possible and get them the most reps that they can. So
then what is? Sorry, Steve. I want to stay on this for a quick second. What is the training, the preparation to become an AHL referee?
I would say everyone's path is different. I mean, like, I can kind of give you guys my path, and it's not everyone's is the same. So like I said, I kind of needed something to do once I was done playing. You know, you've done it your whole life. It's kind of the only thing you know as a hockey player, right? And it's just another way to stay in the game. So I reached out to Gene Binda, who kind of runs a lot of the youth and junior hockey in Massachusetts. And his son, Gino, obviously was a ref in the American League for a long time. And so they refed me when I was playing. So once I made that transition, it was just a quick phone call and they knew who I was and kind of got my start there doing, junior B, junior A, got my feet wet in Division III college hockey, and then kept kind of climbing that ladder every year. It seemed like I was getting a promotion every summer. And so I ended up in Atlantic Hockey and Hockey East for a couple years as a referee. And then my family is really close with the Lamarillos. My uncle played for Lou at Providence and then played for him in New Jersey for a long time. So I've known them for a while. And his son, Chris, actually reached out to me and asked me if I'd have any interest in reffing professional hockey. And so I kind of submitted my resume to the NHL Combine and kind of got my shot there. So that was kind of my path. But everyone's path is different. Some guys go out west and they do the program, like out in the USHL, North American League, and kind of work up through USA Hockey. Fortunately for me, as you guys know, and there's so much hockey in the Boston area where I didn't have to go out and do that and live in an apartment. I was able to work at home and still live at home and be able to kind of climb the ladder out here. So it was that was my path, and it was what worked out best for me. But other guys go out west and just kind of individual base.
Well, I was gonna. I mean, pardon if I do call you Chris, because I was gonna ask if there was a relation to Chris, because I don't know. I felt like he was playing when I was a kid, and that's
Yeah,
just one of
he's
those
my
names
uncle.
that
He's
always
my
stuck
dad's
with
little
me.
brother. Yeah. So
That's awesome.
I get called Chris a lot too, even when I'm talking to coaches sometimes because they probably played against him or knew him. So I get called Chris quite a bit. I've kind of been answering to it my whole life. So
That's funny. We're talking
yeah.
with Casey Terreri, AHL official. And I obviously I know you said that it started early, so there wasn't a big adjustment period necessarily for you, but you know, going into arenas every night and knowing that, like, I just say, like, you don't ever get a home game. You know, like when you're playing, you get a home game, you get the crowd behind you, the fans behind you.
Right.
When
Yeah.
you don't really get a home game, do you?
I would say Providence is probably my only home game where there's a little section of maybe 10, 15 people up in the balcony kind of chanting for me when we come out on the ice. But yeah, other than that, no, it's and I tell the guys sometimes even like when the game's going on, I go, you know what, man, I haven't been home in 2 weeks. Let's see if we can get this game moving here. And they're like, oh, you know, it kind of like dawns on them like you really don't have a home game at all. So it's you know what though, life on the road is part of the job, and it's fun in some points. Some cities are nicer than others, but I enjoy it, so it's good.
So what's like travel like? Do you receive your schedule for the season like when the season starts, or are you month by month? Do you get to, we talk about it a lot with the Thunderbirds. It's a lot of going up and down I-91. Is that some? Can you
Right.
pick out certain arenas to ref at more often, given your home base, or how's that work?
So schedule wise, we usually in normal times, like I kind of started during COVID, and that was crazy. But normally, how it works is we get our schedule about a month and a half out. So like right now, we're scheduled through the beginning of February. So so it gives us time to plan out our hotels, book our flights, rental cars, all that stuff. So for referees, I'm on a full-time AHL contract, so I kind of travel a little bit more than some of the newer guys who are maybe only working 20 games a season. But so referees travel pretty much the whole league, right? So I'll go out west a couple of trips. I was just in Chicago, just in Colorado, so we move around quite a bit. For you don't want to have overexposure, and they don't want me to be in Springfield 20 times a year when it comes playoff time. That could be beneficial or not. So they kind of try to spread out the referees. The linesmen are normally local to the area. There's a handful that travel, but most of the time, like, you guys know Brent Colby pretty well, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Like he's a Hartford guy. So he has his little loop. And so like the Northeast guys kind of stay in the Northeast. The Mid-Atlantic guys kind of roam around, Lehigh, Hershey, Wilkes-Barre. They kind of roam around that area. So it's more like linesmen are local based and referees are kind of just taking flights, crossing each other in airplanes.
Wow.
So that means we're stuck with Heinen and the brothers there. What are they?
The Brigantes, yeah. But you know what?
Brigantes.
Those are two guys to be stuck with. Those guys are top notch.
No, they seem like good guys. They seem like
Yeah.
good guys. Well, and one thing that just obviously, I'm working there, but one of the things that I notice as a fan is the Brigantes more than anybody kick guys out of the face-off circle, and it drives fans bananas. A lot of the questions we reached out to the fans, and all the ones that weren't like, why does he hate Springfield? We're asking the question, what's with the face-offs? How come guys get kicked out so much? And do they just have so many rules on face-offs that it becomes so technical for you guys? Like, is it I don't want to say over officiated. Is the rule book just so convoluted with face-offs, or so heavy that there's so much for the linesmen and the refs to look at before you even drop the puck?
So first of all, linesmen handle the face-offs. We don't handle those. The referees kind of stay out of that. We let them do their own thing. But no, to be serious, it's such a tight standard on face-off, and like we have a quote, fair and fast. But sometimes you really want to set the standard early in the first period. So you might have more ejections in the first. That way guys know later in the game when the face-offs become more important, right? The last minute of each period, the last 5 minutes of the third, that those guys know what the standard is, and they'll be able to stay in the face-off and hopefully win it for their team. So I think most of the instruction is, like obviously the feet and the encroaching now with the defensive team down first and then the second guy coming in there. Every team has little tactics, and the really good centers know how to cheat, right? So it's like the more we can nip that in the bud early, the better the game's going to be, second and third period when the games actually really matter, or important times in the game. So that's kind of their instruction.
Yeah, Matt, I just wanted to ask a follow-up because
Mhm.
I think it was you, Casey. Preseason, there was a bunch of penalties in the Springfield game, and maybe this was somebody else, but I felt like you were going out of your way, particularly in the preseason, to come to the box and have conversations with the player about why you made that call, what they were doing wrong. It was almost like instructional. And you
That
talk
was
about
probably
sort of,
me then. Yeah.
yeah, you were talking about setting the standard. It felt like in the preseason you were taking it upon yourself to tell players, look, this is not allowed, or this is how it's supposed to be done. And I really like that, especially players that are new to the league. Like, this is how things work here.
Right. There's a lot of factors that go into that. I mean, like my style, I like to talk a lot. I try to pride myself on my communication, but I just kind of think back to when I was playing, how I would have wanted to be refereed. And I think guys appreciate, like we're accountable for our calls, right? They're on the Jumbotron 20 seconds after we make it. So everyone can see if you're right or wrong. But I like to have a point of view and at least express it to those guys. Maybe not in the heat of the moment, right after I call it. But like you said, I think it was a media timeout. I went and talked to somebody, and you just try to give them your perspective. And I think it goes a long way with those guys to just, it kind of dehumanizes us as,
Mhm.
robots or so, like, quote unquote. But I just try to give them my perspective and tell them what I see. And usually you come to a mutual agreement. And it also goes a long way with just building a rapport with the players, right? Like, you don't want them to hate you all game. You want to, not that we got to be friends with them, but you kind of want to have a working relationship, right? And letting them know how you saw it kind of gives them an insight to what we as officials are thinking. And maybe, next time they have a penalty, they're not as hot going into the box. No one likes to take a penalty, but we have a job to do out there. And I think, especially in the preseason, guys have been playing shinny all summer, and you want to really set the tone for going into the regular season. So that way everyone remembers, hey, this is a hook, this is a slash, stay off the gloves, all that stuff. So I really just try to talk to those guys a lot. I think it goes a long way. So.
Interesting. Do you think, like, to go along that same line of questioning a little bit, do players have to adjust to, maybe how tight a game is being officiated, or, maybe just another referee's perspective on a certain call? Do you find, are players, is that just part of the game? Players kind of get to know you a little bit, how you call a game, how, another linesman is going to call a game. Do they kind of adjust a little bit to you? Do you feel that way?
Yeah, you know what I think. Like, we're calling the NHL standard, right? So
Mhm.
we try to be from referee to referee as consistent as you can be. Obviously, certain guys have different styles, and it's not always going to be the same. But for the most part, throughout the league, we try to keep the exact same standard. And yeah, I think it's tough, right? Because it's like we have a saying where, like, we don't adjust to the players. The players adjust to us, right?
Mhm.
Because we set the standard, so they have to adjust to us. Just like in the face-offs, like you got centers kind of trying to negotiate with the linesman dropping pucks, but it's really the linesman's face-off. He's the one running it, so they have to work around us. That's kind of how we see it, and I think it promotes a consistency throughout the league, ref
Yeah,
to ref
well,
on each
Absolutely.
individual
and
basis.
say you're talking to a couple teachers, so yeah, we got to set the standard,
There you
man. It's
go.
like
Right.
rule
Exactly.
number one. So we're talking with
Exactly.
Casey Terreri, and it's amazing to me that, like, the NHL or the AHL, sports in general are never taking away rules; they just continually add them.
Right.
And I'm wondering your perspective of whether it's the off season when you get the list of new rules, or the league says we're going to put an emphasis on sticks on gloves, or and how you have to approach or maybe tailor your game or the way that you operate based on what's new this year, what's the new flavor of the month this year.
Yeah. So I think it was maybe 2 years ago, there was that new emphasis on cross checking, right? And like, so we go to training camp. We have a referee training camp every year. And we do, on ice skating, all the testing and stuff, but we also do a lot of classroom, and we go over all that new point of emphasis, new rules, all that stuff. And we kind of hammer that home through video as a group. That way, like I said, there's a consistency throughout the league from each referee. So that way we're all coming together, we're all talking about these plays, and we all kind of leave that camp all kind of in the same mindset, right? We're like, this is a cross check this year. Cause I think there might have been a couple in the NHL that were like significant. One to Kucherov, Marchand, like they were causing injuries to star players. So they were trying to crack down on that. And it's just, yeah, like you kind of said, every season there's a new flavor of the month. But it's just we kind of get it hammered home early in training camp. That way we can carry it throughout the season. So,
Interesting.
it just kind of, every game's different. Every season's different. Every year, new things come up. And like you said, they're always adding, they're never taken away.
Yeah, keeps you on your toes for sure.
Exactly.
Casey, talk a little bit about, fighting in the AHL. When you see two guys squaring off, is your adrenaline going a little bit more? What's your mindset, or even, a little scrum in front of the goalie, the hand washing, all that stuff? Are you talking to these guys? I know that's part of the game, but, are there certain moments in a hockey game that get your adrenaline going a little bit more?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's the AHL that it was 10 years ago or even 20 years ago. Right. But
Sure.
it's a little different now with this league is a lot younger, but you can kind of smell when it's coming, and sometimes you need it, right? Like you got the games that are kind of boiling and it's a lot of back and forth, a lot of chirping, and nothing's really happening. It's just kind of staying at that simmer. And sometimes you need a fight just to let that anxiety and that energy out, right? Everyone kind of cools down after that. But you usually know when it's going to happen. And obviously as referees, we kind of do our research. I do a lot of homework. I read a lot of hockey DBs on guys of the game I'm working that night. We have a stat pack in the locker room. You see who has the high number in penalty minutes. So you know who the guys are. And if you've been around long enough, you know too. And you know what? I like it. It gets the fans going. It gets us going the same way, right? You hear the stadium start to roar. And you get that adrenaline for sure. Not like the guys that are doing the fighting, but it's nice to be off in the fray, just kind of watching. And, some guys kind of like maybe don't necessarily love when it happens, but like I said, sometimes you need it to happen. Right. And it's not necessarily good for the game, but it's good for that particular moment where it helps settle everything down.
Sure.
No, I'm glad you said that, because it's amazing even watching NHL games where I'm like, if they would just let them fight, none of this other chippiness, this would all end. Like just one scrap could just put all this aside, and at the same time, the game in Springfield Friday night, it was a boring second period. And then the third period, there's a massive fight. Thunderbirds score 2 quick goals, and it just turned the whole momentum of the whole game. And like you said, whether it's simmering down the chippiness or electrifying the team and the fans, like there's value to that. It's just
absolutely right. And I mean, like you said, sometimes from my perspective, I like when it simmers the game down. But from a team perspective, giving them energy, right? Like I totally understand it. So I have no problem with the fighting. It just, you want guys kind of in the same weight class, so it's a fair fight. But other than that, I say throw them. I love it.
It's awesome.
What is your, like, is there a moment where you are instructed as a referee, okay, at this point you have to break it up, or if it's a stalemate, like what are you looking for before you jump in to break it up?
So I think every fight's different. The main things you're looking for are guys vulnerable? Are they in a bad position? Like when the jersey comes over the head now, like in the old days, you just used to see guys wail, but now we're instructed to get in there, right? Because that guy's in a vulnerable position. That's injury potential for sure. So anytime the helmet comes off, not necessarily that we have to get in there, but it's like our trigger is a little quicker. And then when you see the jersey come over, those are situations where we want to help protect guys, because it's not necessarily a fight to light anyone up. Now there's injury potential, and that's where our job kind of steps into. We're all about player safety. That's our main goal. But yeah, it's like I like when the heavies go, right? The heavy guys, they have respect, they know the code, and they're gonna have a good one. And we try to let them kind of settle it themselves. And when they get tired, we'll go in. But the guys that can throw, we try to let them have as much time as they want. And then necessarily like the mismatches, that's when we're going to jump in a little quicker than normal.
We're talking with Casey Terreri. I'm curious, and you can go ahead and throw any of us under the bus. Are there buildings that you just, roll your eyes at, knowing that you have to go to, whether it's because the fans are on you, or the accommodations stink, or the travel pattern stinks, or it's too cold, or it's too hot, or it smells? Are there arenas that you're just kind of like not interested in going to?
I don't know, Florence. I think you're trying to throw me under the bus right now.
Well, every time one of the refs always comes to Springfield and goes, "Man, it smells like cigarettes in here," and I'm like, I think it's just the weed. I don't think it's the
Those
cigarettes.
are the Zamboni guys down at the other.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Minute left.
But,
quick heater.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, you know what? for the most part, all these buildings are really nice. Especially like me being close to Springfield. Obviously, I work there a lot. I like going to the old barns that have character, right? Your Springfields, your Uticas. Like the nice buildings are good too, but I kind of like that old school vibe. So I wouldn't say there's any that are bad. I mean, some ref locker rooms are a little smaller than others. Maybe that might be my answer there, but I won't call out any teams individually. But yeah, for sure. Like in Cleveland's a beautiful arena, right? That's where the Cavs play. So we have, a state-of-the-art referee room as opposed to some others where you're like, hey, is this a closet or is this a locker room here?
Where do I hang my stuff? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
How early are you getting to the game? Do you have a pregame, postgame ritual? Are you hanging out? Are you out as quick as can be? I'm sure like your next game would dictate that, but do you have a typical kind of routine on game day?
Yeah, like if I'm in Springfield, I'm there for 7:00 puck drop. I'm there between 5 and 5:30. Kind of read the game notes. A lot of guys have routine. I'm for sure kind of that way too. Get in, get the gitch on, throw the sandals on, kind of have a coffee, read the game notes. And then right, like we have a clock in the room, so we know how much time is going on when for warm-ups and all that. And usually like 10 minutes before warm-ups, I'll start throwing the sneakers on and going for a little jog, getting warm. I'm pretty much warming up at the exact same time as the players on the ice, but we're just doing it underneath. And then, throw the gear on, which is you could do it in your sleep now at this point. But and then you're ready to go. So that's the one difference that I noticed when I stepped into pro from college, where college you go on the ice for warm up, so you can kind of go get a little skate. Whereas here you're not on the ice until 2 or 3 minutes before the game. You get a quick hot lap and you got to be ready to go, right? So it's a little tougher, but that's what you warm up, you get prepared, and you stay in your routine, because I think that makes you the most comfortable. So as long as I'm kind of sticking to my routine, getting out there and getting going isn't too hard.
I have a sort of Springfield-based question. I'm wondering if you had a chance, I'm sure you did, to work with Jay Denver, who obviously we lost to cancer over the summer. He was such a unique guy, because he took his job so seriously and he came off like such a pain in the rear. But he was actually, a really, really nice guy. But I'm wondering what the relationship is, maybe not necessarily with Jay, but like with those head off ice officials and sort of how they operate behind the scenes, which is something a lot of people don't get to see or hear about.
Well, yeah, no, it was really sad news about Jay, and he was quite the character, and I love that stuff when the off ice guys come in, right? Because not specifically Jay, but guys throughout the league, that this might be the best part of their week, coming in on a Friday night just to talk to us. And Jay was a really good guy. He came in, always made sure we had everything we need. And he would have a great little pregame speech for the guys about the pace of the game. And I think his quote was, "I got a drink with ice at the 99s. Don't let it melt."
Yep.
So
my ice cubes are melting. Yeah. That's what he used to always say.
Don't let my ice cubes melt at the 99. So no, he was one of the all-time guys. And there's a lot of guys throughout the league that are like him. And it's I just try to treat every guy with respect, and it's good guys like that like are kind of the grease of the league, right? They kind of keep everything going, and you have a ton of respect for those guys, because they're volunteering their time. I don't think they're getting paid. If they are, it's not much, and they're there because they love it, right? So nothing but respect for guys like that. And Jay was an all-timer for sure.
He used to say to me next to me in the PA booth, you'd say, if you step out of line, I sharpen my elbows.
Yeah.
One of those in the rib cage,
Yeah. Like if he'd come into our room late, he'd be like, "Hey, Case, did you give him the speech already? Does he know?" I'm like, "Yeah, he knows. Don't worry. We'll try to make sure this game's moving here."
Oh, that guy was something else.
Yeah, Casey, I just have one more question, and this is actually from the fans. This we saw this quite often in our social media stuff. The ref you suck chant. Does that get to you guys? Can you appreciate it that it's fans are here to support their team? Does that have any doing whatsoever to you?
Matt, I don't even know what you're talking about. No, you know what? Obviously we hear it, and you know what? It's their prerogative, right? Like they're supporting their team. I have no problem with it whatsoever. I think a lot of the time, if they watch the replays, I feel justified because I know it's a penalty. But you know what? Everyone sees the game through their own lens, right?
Mhm.
The away team sees it through their lens. The home team sees it through their lens. The fans, same thing. So, no, I like it. It gets the crowd going, and loud buildings are good buildings. So, in my opinion, any chance good.
That's
There
awesome.
you go.
All right. Well, Casey Terreri, AHL official. It was a blast having you. Really appreciate you taking the time. Hopefully, we see you back in Springfield again soon. I always appreciate the work that you and really all the refs across the league do. Like you, sitting so close. I'm always like, I don't know what they're booing. That was pretty obvious down here.
I'll just say this one thing to leave you guys. Forens, this is for you. I always hear when you're announcing us before the game. I got a little bit of a louder announcement than the other three guys, so I appreciate that.
hey, trying to help the team.
I
give
love
the
it,
people
man.
what
I
they
love it.
want.
No, I
So,
appreciate
Casey,
you guys. Thanks for having me
when's
on.
the next game you'll be in Springfield? Do you have one coming
I'm
up?
actually there for two right before Christmas, the 22nd and 23rd. I'm there back-to-back nights, so I'll see you guys soon for sure.
awesome. I'll be there.
Sounds good. Well, thank
All
you
right.
so much, Casey. We appreciate your time. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was great. Thanks for having me on.
All right, there goes Casey Terreri, AHL official. Absolute pleasure to have him on the show. And he, along with all of our guests and Matt and myself, are brought to you by White Lion Brewing, their new location in Amherst on North Pleasant Street, of course, right in downtown Springfield at Tower Square. 1500 Main Street, the place to go prior to Springfield Thunderbirds games. Parking is brutal in downtown Springfield, especially what was it, Friday night they played. There was something going on at the Symphony Hall. It was just madness down there in a good way. But for those of us trying to park, it can be a little tricky. So we recommend you guys park in the Tower Square garage. Go into White Lion, show them your ticket stub, and they'll validate your parking for you while you're there. Try some nachos, Seuss mac and cheese, Hall of Fame wings, tons of beers on tap. And of course, if you can't get down there, don't forget you can find their beers in your local store cooler. White Lion Brewing, now in Amherst in downtown Springfield, a proud local supporter of the SRG podcast. Make sure you tell them that the fellas at SRG sent you. And yeah, real quick, a Friday night was between the Festival of Trees, something going on at Symphony Hall, and Thunderbirds sold out crowd. I keep saying Friday. That was Saturday, wasn't it?
It was, yes, yeah.
I walked out of that game, and there were people in downtown Springfield everywhere. And for years, I've come to games in Springfield, and the building's half empty. There's nothing else going on downtown. It's dark. It's borderline scary. And now there's just so much action. There's so much going on. The casino. It was awesome to just see so many people doing different, unique things in downtown on a Saturday night. I absolutely loved it. So tip of the hat to anybody who's spending their nights on a weekend and their hard-earned money in the community right in downtown Springfield doing fun stuff. So
there's awesome. There's so much to do in Springfield, and it's great for the city. You've got the Thunderbirds, you've got Symphony Hall, there's so much too during the day that you can do. I mean, we used to take our kids over to the Dr. Seuss Museum all the time and all the other museums over there. There's just, Springfield is a fun place to be. And then, Thunderbirds are a part of it, but there's a lot more than just the Thunderbirds. And it's great to see. I mean, it is needed, that new parking garage, but in the meantime, we've got the Tower Square one right there. So all good stuff.
So, Matt, thoughts on the interview with Casey?
I thought it was great. I thought it was wonderful. I mean, where else can you get that perspective? You don't typically, you see a player walking down the street, you recognize their face. You're not going to recognize an AHL referee. So to be able to talk to him and sort of hear his perspective, I think is wonderful. We've talked about this a few times, and I'm glad to hear Casey say, a loud crowd is a good crowd. So bring on the ref, you suck. Bring on the booze. And it's true. They're not out to get anybody. They don't start. That's their livelihood. I mean, they get graded after game. We probably should have brought that up a little bit. What sort of grading system do they use to keep themselves accountable? But they're not out to get the Thunderbirds or any team for that matter. And you don't like a call, bring on the booze, bring on the chance. But at the end of the day, they're going to call what they think they see. And I also thought it was really cool, his commentary on, standing there next to a fight. And what that's like. That was pretty cool too.
I mean, and I thought you had a great question too about the intensity. Do they feel that? And I gotta assume that 90 of the refs and linesmen used to play hockey, and so they understand the intensity of big hits and fights. Also, is the intensity of bad calls or calls that are big calls in the moment that the fans are going to react to. And, even just his honesty talking about fighting, I thought was great. I mean, you always wonder that perspective. And like I said, Casey to me has always been one. I'm glad we got him because he's always one of those guys that I think is intense. He's intense on the ice. And I think I mentioned before, he's very vindictive in his calls. And when he makes a call, that's the call and that's his call. And you can yell and scream and hop up and down and slam your stick. It doesn't matter. That's the call. That's what he's going to call. And I thought it was great. I thought that was a blast. And he called me Forns. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. I have my own hockey nickname now, Forns. Fantastic.
There you go.
I haven't heard that one in years. So no, we really appreciate him taking the time, and I'm excited he'll be back in Springfield in a couple weeks. That'll be good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, hopefully we can touch base then. You want to get into a little bit of one game? We had one game this Saturday.
Yeah. So just an overall perspective, I thought Saturday's game, the teddy bear toss night, I thought it was everything that you want from an organization. It's everything that you want from a player. It's everything you want from a fan. You get the teddy bear toss goal coming 1 minute and 20 seconds into the game. You got some pretty sweet goals in the first period, a kind of a sloppy, lullish, but quick moving second period. And then in the third period, you get a massive fight. You get Sam Bitten dropping the gloves, absolutely laying bombs on this guy. Yeah. And then immediately there was another match penalty for roughing, Duzak and McLean. And then bang, 2 quick Thunderbirds goal, game over.
Yeah.
4-0. Warm up the bus. Everybody get out of here. And it was, again, the AHL fans, they want goals, hits, and fights. And that one had it all. It really had everything you could want from a fan perspective. And sweet jerseys. Those jerseys look so cool on the ice.
So sharp. And how about Zarenko's helmet too?
Yeah.
Oh, that looked awesome. When I was scrolling through it and I found it on the Springfield Thunderbird Equipment Instagram page, and my first thought was, did they put like a Santa hat on the helmet? Like that was just sharp helmet. Yeah. So to a little bit more about that game, I thought Walker's goal, if I'm not mistaken, in the second period, was a beauty. I think he ended up going forehand to backhand on that one. So that was great.
Yeah, it was just real quick. It was the pass from Rosen. Rosen, it was because it was 4-on-4, and Rosen, unless Walker had 2, but it was that 4-on-4 after the 2 roughings. And Rosen had it in the zone, and he backed it out, right? Like we talk about with the 3-on-3s. Yep. He backed it out, got a line change, and as Walker came off the bench, I don't know, Bridgeport players just didn't see him, and Rosen just blistered a pass, tape to tape, through 3 Bridgeport guys and sent him in. And, the pass, the pull out, the pass, and the goal were just absolutely beautiful. It was gorgeous.
Beauty. Absolute beautiful. Laffey's goal, like you said, 1 minute and 20 in. And then was it 10 minutes to clean up? I saw the numbers today. We're recording this Monday evening. 6,489 stuffed animals collected and distributed through around the Springfield area, different hospitals. Absolutely. Great job. And that's to you, the fans. But that's just so cool to see all the constant stream of the teddy bears and, the ice crew. I think Ryan said this, like, I don't even think these guys have their skates on yet, but they're running out there. They've got their trash cans, and it's like, oh, these trash cans aren't enough. Let's bring out a pickup truck. And so job well done, Thunderbirds. Job well done to the front office, to the ice cleaning crew. Job well done to you,
Dave's
the
truck
fans.
repair.
Is that who brought
Dave's truck repair? Yeah. Yep. But it's funny too, because on the off ice side of things, the off ice officials and production want it done as quick as possible, and of course,
sure,
it takes time. But we set the bar at 10 minutes. Like, we got to get, from the minute those bears go, 10 minutes, we need to have this ice cleaned. And we clocked in, I believe, at 9 minutes, 20 seconds.
Perfect.
So we had the doors closed and the puck dropped 9 minutes, 20 seconds after that LaFerriere goal. So I think they got it down to a pretty good science between the buckets again, the players helping out, I think, is so huge. And I know it sounds silly, but just consolidating, it's like bagging leaves in your backyard in the fall. It's like if you just make a bunch of little piles and let everybody else come along and scoop them up. That was awesome.
That was great. Yeah. Another 2 goals from Coughlin. That second period, you're right. That was brutal. It was tough. A lot of icing. I felt, I wasn't counting, but I felt like a lot of icing. I was watching the game on TV, and it was one of those where it's like you're kind of doing a few different things. You look up and it's like, oh, 9 minutes left. And you come back and you're like, oh, is it intermission yet? No, there's 5 minutes left. It was just kind of a slow, dragged out, a lot of whistles. At least that's what it felt like. And I'll be honest, I'm watching it and okay, we have a 2-0 lead going now into the third. All right. Well, last week we had a 2-0 lead going into the third. And we ended up losing that game in overtime. I was a little, not nervous, but anxious to see how the Thunderbirds would come out here in the third period. It was a slow game, and Bridgeport is one of those teams where if you give them reason to have hope, they're going to have it. And, they can score. They showed early in the season they can beat us. So a little anxious as to what's going to happen. Who's going to step up for Springfield? Who's going to step up for Bridgeport? And lo and behold, it in my opinion, it was Sam Bitten. You touched upon it, Steve. The fight kind of got the juices flowing. It got the crowd back into it. It got the players back into it. I think it woke everybody up. And, we are playing hockey. And then, boom, boom, boom. I think it was 2 quick Springfield goals and then even a quick Bridgeport goal.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, 4-1, game over. Kalinuk, ends it with his goal. And you look, the Thunderbirds are playing good hockey right now. And, they're going to need to continue that heading into next week. We'll preview that in a little bit. But.
Yeah. And I'll tip of the hat to Travis. I believe it was Travis Mitchell, who was in that fight with Sam Bitten. That guy didn't go down easy either. And, he's 6'4", and I'll share this. They got to the box, and Mitchell, looks at Sam and hey, he yells at him. And he goes, great scrap. Boy, you're a tough mother bleeper. It was just, and Sam got to the box and he was so pumped. He knew he did exactly what he wanted to. We talked about how excited he gets when the fans get fired up and they get excited for him. And he got to the box I don't think he skated. I think he floated to the box with happiness. And to hear that from the opposing player, I think got him just really, really happy and excited. So, and it, like you said, turned the whole pace and play of the game right around. It was awesome.
And I'm sure it's something to like what Casey kind of mentioned, where you have 2 guys who know what they're doing, and you're going to let them scrap. And Sam is a young guy, rookie here in the AHL. He's making a name for himself, and it was a good scrap. It was fun. It was long. It wasn't one of those quick, boom, boom, done. Good scrap, and good to see sort of the mutual respect. Again, I'm not a hockey player, but hearing Casey talk, watching the game, kind of hearing what you heard going back and forth, I'm sure these 2 players, Bitten and Mitchell, kind of like, we need to get something going here.
Yeah.
So they're probably chirping, hey, you want to go? Let's go. And then boom, here it was. And we got interjected some energy and it worked out for the Thunderbirds for sure.
Yeah. Definitely some chatting as well in the box between Duzak and Kyle McLean. I'm trying to look it up because I'm not exactly sure what either of them are making, but the talk was definitely about finances and who made more money. And Duzak, whatever he said to McLean, Kyle McLean was not happy.
Not happy
with the words that our buddy Joe Duzak said. I could tell just from having him on our show that day that he is a good little smack talker. So, boy, he had some words for McLean, and that was one of those ones where I'm holding the mic, waiting for the 2 of them to stop chirping so I can make the announcement, because it was, it was chatty down there in the box. But
have you ever caught something on a hot mic?
you gotta ask the people listening, because I don't know. I mean, there are times where I turn on the mic and I start talking and I just hear something over my shoulder, and the last thing you want to do when that's going on is stop talking. So I just I try to just like steamroll right through it, and I don't know what gets picked up and what doesn't. I mean, I put that mic pretty close to my mouth, a lot closer than this. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm probably solid, whatever, 4 or 5 inches away from this thing. When I'm down there, I kind of eat it a little bit. I have it really close up there. So I don't think it picks up a lot of natural sound, but there are some guys in there that are pretty loud and like to yell. So that was a fun. I mean, like I said, I went home all smiles after that game Saturday night. That was a total blast, and the team is in a good spot. So, obviously looking forward to it. We have a game. This is coming out Wednesday, so there's a home game Wednesday, and then Thunderbirds fans, you can actually go see your family again this weekend, Friday and Saturday. No home games. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to kiss my kids, I guess, for once, probably, but
get to say goodnight over the weekend. Do you know anything? So Wednesday is a winning Wednesday game, home against the Americans. I know that's Subban's former team. I don't have much on them. It's not a division opponent. I kind of feel like, game they need to win. I mean, they're in the North. I don't know. I haven't picked their schedule up. They've got 11 wins on the season, 24 points. Same. They're just below the Thunderbirds. I don't know how many of those games are against, Laval. They're struggling this year. They're down a little bit, and Utica as well. But I kind of, I don't know, and I could be totally wrong on this. I kind of feel like divisions are almost like a style of hockey, right? Here in the Atlantic, they're all really good. They play a style kind of hockey. So I'm curious, the Thunderbirds had success against the Comets this year. I'm hoping their sort of, dominance or call it success over the North continues against the Americans. But I don't really have much to go in here other than Subban's former team. He'll probably get the start with Zarenko having the last two.
Yeah. The only thing that I can really point out about them is what I know from their parent club, Buffalo. And there's a lot of guys that are up in Buffalo that have been impressive, that have sort of stuck. So like they have this kid, Isak Rosean, who I believe is still in Buffalo. I don't think he's down yet. So there's, and their goaltender up there, Devin Levi, I think was supposed to start the year in Rochester and just stayed up in Buffalo. So I think there's some pieces that were meant for Rochester that Rochester's never really gotten a chance to take a look at. So, I have to check the roster, but, Riley Stillman, who is still one of my favorite Thunderbirds players, is he going to be up or down? I'm not positive. There's another one, Cale Clogg, who's got a lot of, I guess, notoriety, right? He's a young guy. I think he was drafted by Vegas, sort of bounced around a lot, kind of like Dylan Coughlin. We'll see where he is in the roster. And then Ethan Prow, who was a good soldier here in Springfield. There was a while there where when I had my radio show, I'd have players on, and then the next week they'd get hurt. Oh, so nobody wanted to come on my show. Ethan Prow was one of those guys. Had him on my show, and they shattered his leg. So sorry about that, Ethan. But he'll be back in Springfield. So, other than that, I'm not entirely sure. We do also have some news, Thunderbirds related, and forgive us for getting this late to bring it up, but tip of the hat, congratulations to our buddy Hugh Money McGing. He got called up, and from what I gather, he immediately got thrown in there and then was immediately a -2. And from what I gather from the Blues beat writers is, Jakub Vrana is one of these players who's miserable and doesn't want to be there, and he wants to get traded, and he doesn't want to play for St. Louis anymore. And then they put the kid on his line. And it's like, talk about setting him up for failure. Like, you're putting him with the guy who doesn't want to be there. Like, that's not going to work. Like, why don't you put him with, I don't know, some like Jake Neighbors, or put him with these young guys who are excited to want to be there, or some of these veterans, throw him out there with Jordan Kyrou and see what happens. So I think the beat writers seemed like they kind of set him up to fail a little bit in his first game, but we'll see if he sticks.
Yeah. I mean, speaking a little bit about St. Louis, they just had the Bortuzzo trade. And Vrana looks like they're trying to trade him as well. So I'm not sure if, and I hope for Hugh, he might be up there for a little while. They're giving him a shot up there. I mean, we've talked about this where we want guys like Will Bitton and Gaudette and anybody else who's still hungry to get up there. We want them to have that chance. I hope for our sake, selfishly, it's not a bit of a revolving door where every week or every 2 weeks it's a new guy getting called up. But Hugh McGing, I will say this: Jake Neighbors. I don't know if you saw this. Jake and Connor Bedard are the only 2 players in the NHL right now to lead their team in goals scored under the age of 22.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool.
It's our guy, Jake Neighbors.
Good for you, Jake Neighbors.
And real quick on Vrana, they were even talking today about possibly putting him on waivers.
Yeah.
Which as a Thunderbirds fan, you're like, sweet, like this is like a real legit NHL player. But at the same time, if his mind ain't in it and he's just not right, the last thing he's going to want to do is be in Springfield, Massachusetts. What kind of an effort are you going to get out of that guy? So I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah. I mean, I believe wholeheartedly in poison locker rooms. I have no idea who Vrana is as a person. But I would understand him if he's not happy in the St. Louis organization. He wants out. I don't know if sending him down to Springfield would do anybody any good.
Yeah.
So I did see that, and I don't know if they have any trade partners at the moment for him, but I will keep an eye on that and bring any.
I mean, why would you? If you're another team based on that contract, they want to dump him. And what's going on. Why would you want a player like that? I don't know. I wouldn't, So, and again, like you said, I don't know him from Adam. I don't know anything about him other than what the box score tells me. But, it doesn't seem like a good idea to have him, around all these young guys here in Springfield. That doesn't seem productive. I don't know.
Yeah,
so.
I'm with you. Getting back to this weekend, after the winning Wednesday against the Americans, the Thunderbirds head up to the Phantoms, Lehigh Valley Phantoms, for a Saturday night game. I think this is a game you have to have points in. You've got to get a point at least in this game with Hershey coming up on Sunday. It's a team you're familiar with. It's a team you've had back and forth with contests this year. This has to be a point.
Yeah, and Lehigh Valley's reeling a little bit. They got blown. Yeah. They got their doors blown off in Providence over the weekend. So they're reeling, and you gotta keep them down when they're down. So, and like you said, you can't look past this team knowing that the next 2 are against Hershey.
Yeah,
like you got to just keep the train rolling because Hershey's going to come at you. So you got to do business with Lehigh Valley and then strap them up for Hershey. Yeah,
and so Sunday at Hershey, it's their first of 4 on the season. You don't play Hershey a lot. I don't know if that's a good thing. It is what it is. But look, I'm not breaking any news here. Stevenson's good. Their goaltender, he's got a 1.07 goals against, 4 shutouts on the year. We've talked about this on previous shows. Springfield's magic number seems to be 3. Hershey's is 1.
Yeah, right.
So, I be foolish to think, hey, we gotta light the lamp here, score 5. This is going to be a tough physical game. I would love to see both Bittens in the lineup here and really assert, again, with the first of 4 against Hershey, assert some physicality, set the tone on the road, and bring the physical play to them. It'd be nice to see Skinner in the lineup as well. Looking at Hershey's team, I looked at their roster a little bit. No surprises here. You got Ethan Frank, 12 goals. I'm probably saying this guy's name wrong. Parik Dubé.
That sounds good. I'll let you know.
Yep. Parik Dubé, 12 goals. Scarboza's got 24 points with 19 helpers. So for me, I think it's really, really important for Springfield's top line, Pekka, Gaudette, and Walker, to kind of match Hershey's top line. And Gaudette's a bit of a streaky player. I think of maybe 6-game pointless streak snapped over the weekend. So let's hope he gets on a little bit back on his sort of hot streak here this weekend. That'd be great, because I feel like they're going to need the top line to be the top line. And special teams, I looked at this too. They're as far as percentage goes, and to your point earlier, it can be a little deceiving if a power play only lasted 15 seconds. But their power play statistics and penalty kill statistics are pretty similar. So I think, this might be the tilt might go to who has better special team play here. So those are my kind of keys for that Sunday game against Hershey.
And yeah, we failed to even mention no penalties against, at least beside the matching 2 minutes in the fight, no penalties against, and 1-for-1 on the power play against Bridgeport. And against Bridgeport, a team that loves putting people in the box. They just love getting people in the box. Their guys, your guys, any guys, put them in the box. So let's hope they stay disciplined. I think that's something to really focus on, is to stay disciplined. The certain penalties are going to happen, but you can avoid those, the hooking, the slashing, the stick stuff, the stick work. Hockey guys will tell you are lazy penalties, and let's limit those. So, but it's an exciting stretch here heading into Christmas, and I think that by Christmas we'll have a really good idea here of what this team is, where they are, what the standings look like, all that stuff. So it'll be really interesting when we dive in, not only next week but a week from now, as to what we're looking like. So
absolutely.
So we want to give a big thank you to Casey Terreri for joining us. That was an absolute pleasure. We really appreciate him coming on, and hopefully we can get him on soon again. I mean, I'd love to. I don't see why not. He seemed more than willing to come on again. But we really appreciate him, and we want to thank our friends at White Lion Brewing. You can check out their new location in Amherst, and of course in Tower Square, downtown Springfield. Real quick, they did the cookie decorating thing. Took my kids. It was packed. It was busy. Families all over, running all over the inside of Tower Square. The food was great. So a real nice event there from White Lion, getting the family involved. My kids had a really good time. So thanks to Ray and all those guys over there for a nice little Sunday. And this was great. We'll do it again. Episode number 14. Appreciate all the listeners and subscribers.
And we'll see you next week. Let's go T-Birds.